So in your practice, you've probably played mostly first trumpet parts. It's what we do. In fact, a lot of times, even for second or third assistant auditions, or even utility auditions, some first excerpts are asked. But the fact is, even though playing first is fun and you get the bigger paycheck, most of the jobs in the section are in the section. If there's a four-person section, there's only one principal. So it's really good to understand what it takes to be able to play second trumpet, to be able to play third or an associate, to be a utility player. What are the common things that all of those positions hold, and what's unique to them? So I want to talk to you a bit about that right now. Playing second trumpet, I think, is a very difficult job because we've been trained to play with all of this style and all this musicianship. And as a second player, what you have to do is sublimate your own ideas and simply match the first player. It sort of goes against all of that hard work you've been doing to be musical. You have to just say, okay, whatever the first player does is what I'm going to do. So you have to match, first of all, pitch, articulation, rhythm, and provide that big cushion of sound for the first player to go off of. First player gets all the solos and all the glory. Second player shows up, does their job, and goes home. But it's honest work, it's good work, and I have to tell you, as a principal player, the work that my second player does is always something that I appreciate. When they sound good, it really helps me to sound good. So if you're playing second trumpet, what you need to do is to develop a sound that has a little more depth to it than the first player, because you want to set that good basis for the first player to float above. Also, working on understanding how to match your first player's articulation is very important. Most players don't practice how to play second. In fact, when I found myself having to play some second early in my career, it was really difficult for me to make that adjustment, to find a little bit thicker articulation, to be able to play really solidly below the staff. If you actually get in a position where you're playing second trumpet, you're going to have to adjust your equipment, probably. You're going to want to get an instrument that matches whatever the first player is using, and something that has a little bit more open low register than perhaps what you would want as a first player. Finding that balance in sound and that way to be supportive and not overshadow the first player is the job of the second. Another thing that the second trumpet has to do is limit the amount of vibrato they use, because you don't want the vibrato of the second player to be competing with the principal. The principal can use more vibrato, the second has to use less. So you need to work on being able to take that out of your playing when it's called for. Playing third trumpet is often an assistant principal as well. So they have two roles within the section. They have to be a third player playing those lower parts, and then also be able to step up and play first on certain pieces, often in the first half of the program or during the concerto, and then go back into the section for the second half. It takes an incredibly well-rounded player to do this. What you need to do is to be able to do both the job of a first player and a second player, to have personality in your playing, but also be able to sublimate that and to play with less vibrato and be matching of the first and second player. Another great challenge is to play the high parts on part of a program and have to jump down and play very full and thick in sound in the lower register on the second half of a program. To do this requires an understanding of how to move around the instrument well. And if you refer back to part of this course about playing evenly across registers, it's something that a third and assistant player has to really spend a lot of time doing. As for equipment, they're going to have to get something that's somewhat in between what a first and second player might want to have. You have to have something that responds great down low for all those low parts, but you also have to have a mouthpiece and a horn that work together to give you some brilliance as well for when you're playing first. I think also the most difficult thing is the idea of having to flip that switch from being a leader to being a follower in the section, and being able to do that very quickly. And that goes back to part of the course that we had about defining style, being able to make those switches in your brain so that you can play in different ways. Many orchestras also carry a fourth trumpet who is a utility player. They play fourth, they play some second, they'll play some third, usually not very much first. So in that job, they pick equipment that is more for playing broadly and without as much personality. But they have to be able to step into any position. And sometimes the most difficult part of being a utility player is the fact that you're not used as much as most of the other players. So your chops can get a little rusty. A utility player, I think, needs to spend more time figuring out their practice routines and how to stay in tip-top shape so that when they're called upon to do something that's important, they're ready to step in. Otherwise, it can become very easy to be complacent, play some fourth parts, and then all of a sudden you get a big surprise when someone gets sick or when it's your turn to move up and play a second part, for instance, on a big piece like Bartók Concerto for Orchestra. So each member of the orchestral trumpet section has a different role, and if you are called on to do those roles, it's important to understand that you're going to have to change your mindset and likely also make some adjustments to the equipment that you use. If you're not in that chair every day, it's great to have a couple of mouthpieces that might have different backbores or be slightly different. Not different enough that they make you feel uncomfortable, but different enough in sound that if you're called on to play second or to play third or to play utility, that you can make those adjustments to sound, to play a little richer, to play with a little less brilliance and be supportive. Having that equipment in your bag and having practiced enough so that you're able to make those stylistic changes is going to make you a wonderful addition to a section, and it's going to help you to get work. Now, the last part of our orchestral sections are the substitute and extra musicians that come in. And their job is perhaps the hardest of all because they're not always used to playing in the orchestra. And they're busy doing other things like teaching and freelancing. And then they have to walk into a situation where we're used to playing with each other. We know all of each other's idiosyncrasies. We know how each other likes to tune. We know the volume we like to play. And they have to sort of be a chameleon and fit in and still contribute without getting in the way. I don't really have a lot of experience doing this because I was fortunate enough early in my career to be employed in the orchestra. But for a while in my first years, I did a lot of subbing. And what I found is that I needed to get equipment that worked for anything and then just come in and try to match and try to be a good, a good member of the section for a day or for a week. It's difficult to figure out what you need to do. That's when you have to just rely on the work that you've done and to sit in the chair, do your best, listen like crazy, and ask for feedback. And the guys that are there every day will tell you what you need to be doing or if you need to change anything. And that can be helpful to you too. So I guess to sum this up, the role of the different orchestral section members can be quite different, and you have to be prepared to do all of them. So make sure that you think about what kind of a sound a second, a third, a fourth player will make, and make sure you're able to do that and not just practice the first trumpet parts and be the next great principal player, because until you're there, you may find yourself making some money and playing some concerts in the section, and that's a great place to be.